You can see here that you are like a wild teenager, but you live in a neighborhood of established adults. Yet there are predatory forces in your local universe who will try to take advantage of your recklessness and your naivete to their own advantage. We shall speak of this in later teachings. For now, you must come to accept that there are severe limitations to what humanity can do in your local universe. As you grow and expand, if you are able to withstand the great waves of change that are occurring in your world, you will have to contend with other races who have been established for a very long period of time and who have established rules of engagement, rules of travel and rules of trade that have taken a very long time to establish and that are well fixed. You have to grow up and become responsible and, if you can, maintain as much self-sufficiency in this world as possible. For if you lose your self-sufficiency, you will lose the great possibility and the promise of being a free and independent race. To become part of larger networks of trade, you will be influenced by these networks, and they will determine to a great degree what you can do and what you cannot do. You will have to pay a very high price for engaging in trade with them, for they will influence you and, in certain cases, try to take advantage of you. You represent a newcomer, a weak and unstable race, a race that is easily persuaded and manipulated. For even very stable nations will seek to take advantage of weak emerging races such as your own for their own benefit and stability. Such is the nature of life in the physical reality. Whether you are a native living in the world or whether you are living in an advanced nation in the universe, it is the same reality. It is the same problem of competition and survival, of persuasion and influence. The rigors and the difficulties of manifest life do not end by cultivating advanced technology. In fact, cultivating advanced technology complicates your life, makes it in many ways more difficult and more challenging, and invites the interest and influence of others who you must then contend with. This is a fact of life throughout the universe. It is a reality of physical life itself. The wealth that you have you do not want to flaunt. You do not want to show off in the greater community. You will have to learn to be extremely discreet about whom you engage with, the nature of that engagement, who can visit your world, what they can do here and so forth, all things you are not doing now that you will have to do in the future. It is like growing up as an individual person, young and reckless, thinking you can be anything, have anything and do anything, being out of control and unaccountable. You then enter a mature environment, and you begin to face the kinds of restraints that exist there. You find out that not everyone is interested in you, not everyone likes you, and you cannot do whatever you want. To accomplish anything takes a great deal of planning and work. If you want to be an honest and a happy individual, you must restrain certain kinds of passions and tendencies within yourself. You must become aware of certain seductions in your environment that can undermine your integrity and weaken you as a person. The analogy here is very strong. It is very appropriate. The hazards that a young adult person faces in the world, the seductions they will face, the influences they will face, the restraints they will have to deal with, are very much like humanity's position in space now. You will have to face restraints, influences, seductions and difficulties. And yet, as growing up for a young person is necessary, important and holds some great advantages and opportunities, so growing up as a human family holds great advantages and great opportunities. To establish unity in this world and to end tribal conflict will be an immense accomplishment for humanity, allowing you to devote your energies to more productive and creative endeavors. Being a part of the greater community, you will learn wisdom from the greater community, wisdom that will enhance you both on an individual level and on a collective level. For while there is much competition and freedom is rare in the universe, there is much wisdom there. The new message for humanity is bringing wisdom from the greater community to you in such a way that you can understand it and apply it within your own individual life. In understanding that all races must seek resources, you can begin to understand why anyone would come to your world. They either want to enhance their security, or they are here to gain and acquire resources. There is no other reason to go visit worlds. Do not think there is a lot of tourism in the greater community. Perhaps between trading nations there may be. It is the problem of biological hazards. You may travel to another world to visit a museum or some kind of natural feature of that world, but because you are not of that world, there is always the problem of biological contamination. And this problem has not been universally solved. Between nations or worlds that have regular contact, it can be controlled. But for an outsider to enter these realms would either be prohibited or extremely restricted. So you must understand that anyone who comes to your world comes either to enhance their security or to gain present or future access to resources. In the greater community, you are dealing with an adult environment where the need for resources is ever present and is extremely pressing. No one is going to come to this world on holiday. No one is going to come to this world for a science project, leading a classroom of students as on a field trip. This world is far too hazardous for any foreign nation to do that. You can see here already the degree to which your assumptions and expectations are out of keeping with the reality of the situation, how your expectations regarding contact with extraterrestrial life in the universe must really be based upon a different foundation, and that there are criteria that must be created in order for this contact to be really beneficial to everyone involved. You must then look at the stars not as a place of escape and not as a wondrous environment where you will be free of the difficulties and restraints of life here on Earth. You must look at the stars and space not as a refuge, but as a representation of life on a larger scale. Much of what you face here on Earth you will face in space, but on a much larger scale and in more extreme ways. For example, the lack of freedom that exists in many parts of the world will be even more extreme in the greater community. The strenuous struggle for resources that you experience in the world, particularly amongst poorer people, will be more extreme in the greater community. The need to control societies and individual behavior is more extreme in the greater community. The problems in trade, travel and negotiations are more extreme and difficult in the greater community. The necessity to restrain war and conflict is more extreme in the greater community. The greater community is a bigger version of your life here, bigger in all ways. The problem of maintaining physical health is more extreme in the greater community, where you are confronting beings who have evolved in completely different biological environments or who have evolved in sterile environments. The problem of contamination is extreme. Someone could come to this world, contract a virus or a set of viruses, take them home and infect their entire planet, wiping out most if not all of the inhabitants of that world. That is how potent the problem of contamination really is. Advanced medical technology has not erased this risk. The care that one must bring to one's life and affairs is more extreme in the greater community. The problem of getting around is more difficult in the greater community. The problem of getting along with others who are different from you is more extreme in the greater community because the differences between you and them are so much greater. The problem of communicating to others is more extreme in the greater community, where differences in nature, temperament and appearance are so great. Therefore, do not look to the stars as an escape from life. Do not look at the prospect of space travel as a wonderful adventure into uncharted and uninhabited regions. Do not think that you can go anywhere you want and that you will develop over time a technology for traveling quickly through all the dimensions of life, zipping around the universe as if it were your own neighborhood. Do not think your conveyances will take you anywhere you want in the blink of an eye. Such notions are to be expected from young races full of imagination and hopeful expectation. But they do not fit into the reality of life as it has evolved over a much longer period of time. There are nations in your local universe that have been in existence for 20 or 30,000 years. They have established a level of conformity that is very strict. They are not engaged in social innovation, and most of them have no notion of individual freedom whatsoever. You would find living within them to be extremely difficult, if not intolerable. Free nations are rare and very distinct. They do not travel around trying to plant their flags in other worlds. If they engage in planetary commerce, it is to a very limited degree. And they do not welcome visitors to their worlds. They remain isolated and discreet and guard their boundaries very carefully. As we said at the outset, much of this revelation will be different from your ideas and perhaps very disappointing to your expectations, even to the point where you will not want to accept what is being presented here. You may still want to have your hopes and your dreams and your fantasies. But, alas, the universe represents all the problems and the difficulties of physical life, the problems and difficulties of living in separation, in a separated state, separate from God. These problems exist here and everywhere in the physical reality. No one has been able to escape them entirely. Even races that have established a very stable self-sufficiency, even they have real problems in governance and in dealing with outside forces. And they must be very vigilant regarding their encounters and the influences they might receive from the greater community itself. So emerging into a greater community of intelligent life, you are emerging into a vast and complex demonstration of life that is in many ways similar to what is required of you here on Earth. What is different is that there are many different participants who are very different from one another and very different from you. And the complexity of engagement, trade and commerce is great and requires tremendous sophistication, great care and great vigilance. Yet the possibilities for one's own world can be significant, if one proceeds without aggression and ambition, and if one recognizes that freedom and stability are of far greater value in the universe than conquest or expansion. Civilizations and nations that have been able to survive over time have come to these conclusions. Those that seek to expand and conquer have found themselves in the end destroyed or overtaken by others, for their behavior could not be sustained in a greater community environment, where there are many races seeking to maintain stability and security. The greatest threats to even the most established nations in the universe are the loss of resources, biological contamination and environmental collapse. These three things affect the behavior of stable and evolved nations more than anything else. While war and conflict are rare in many regions of space, competition and influence are abundant. And this threatens the sovereignty of nations and their access to necessary resources. Therefore, what concerns the established nations in your neighborhood and space are different from what preoccupies the nations of Earth, who are focused on growth and expansion in a world of declining resources. Your circumstances will require you to mature or to fail. Stability and security will become ever more the emphasis of your peoples, your nations and your leaders. The idea of conquest will become ever more dangerous, destructive and counterproductive in your affairs with one another. And the need to secure your resources will become the predominating focus of this century and of the times to come. It is because you are emerging into a greater community and because you have grown in the world to such a degree that this emphasis now becomes your focal point. Unbeknownst to you, you are preparing for the greater community. Facing a world of declining resources, you are actually preparing for the greater community, where the problem of securing resources will be continuous and ongoing and is being universally experienced. Real freedom, if it can be established and maintained, will require unity, self-sufficiency and great discretion here and everywhere. Though in the history of your local universe there have been wars and great conflicts, in the last 10 to 12,000 years there has been a period of great stability.